Go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for July 22nd, 2019. Q is going to close up 0.8% here, and the SPY 0.22. Coming into today, we noticed that the SPY had gapped up on Friday and gotten sold, and then the Qs also had done the same. If we had broke below Friday or Thursday's low, then we would be looking for a short setup. So we didn't do that. If that was the case, we would be switching to a bearish bias, but instead what we got was a little bit of a pause. And that's what we expected more than anything, because typically after a wide range bar like this on the market, you usually do get a bit of a rest. So we got a little bit of a pause here. Our inside bar there, market kind of grind, a little bit of a grind there to recover from Friday's selling there. So we really haven't been given the go ahead to switch to a bearish bias. We did switch to a neutral bias because of the way that the gap up got sold, and then the long term still remains bullish until we kind of take out this pivot. Okay, so going to be neutral going into tomorrow on the short term, and then still the long-term bias hasn't really changed here. We're looking better now that we might actually break this pivot, and that'll be a better move lower. We also talked about how the most bullish thing that could happen is that we clear Friday's high. Either we gap to it or gap close to it and then go through it. So that didn't happen either. So we're not all out bullish here either. So that leaves us neutral going into tomorrow, which is good. I like having more of a neutral bias, the market not being as much a factor as we work our way through earnings season. Okay, so that way we can really tell which things are on their own page. I do want to, as much as possible, give you a recap of what we were looking at in the pre-market and then kind of how the day materialized. Okay, so starting off today, I had the CADE as the favorite, gap down, gapping a little bit too much, really only needed a gap to 1830, but was gapping a bit too far. And then I like the DVA for higher. DVA as a gap up, clearing resistance. Okay, so starting with the DVA opened a little bit late, didn't open until right here, and then just came in, tried to recover, and then since then really couldn't get off the lows. So there was really nothing to play here on the DVA as far as I was concerned. This I thought was okay, didn't mention it, but it was basing at the lows. I much prefer playing long if they are retracing off the highs or basing at the highs. Okay, so the DVA, while this was my favorite gap up, ended up not giving us a pattern that I wanted to play. The CADE did end up giving a pattern. Thought there were some decent 1 minute sell setups in here, right? You can see that at the open here, it actually showed follow through to the downside, right? So unlike the DVA, which started to reverse the direction of the gap, this started to follow through on the gap. So this is what I wanted to play. It ended up being a very, very small play. Kind of took all day to get going there. Finally came in after we got out of lunch, actually. So kind of sat in this for hours and waited and finally got a bit there, and then closed the rest here just a couple minutes before the close. Okay, so the CAD did materialize, ended up not giving us that much follow through. Sammy had a nice call on the AMAT here, which they just closed here at the end of the day. This was a gap up, and then I think what set this apart is that this was basing at the highs. So showing a lot of strength here and then breaking out. You know, it's a little bit ironic that we also played the AMAT 2 days ago, well, 2 trading days ago, but last Thursday with the same kind of analysis there. So we had a nice strong move up in the AMAT, and again the AMAT closing here near the highs, and then what it's doing today is actually closing at just pretty much right at the highs. So very nice longer term pattern here on the AMAT and on the monthly, so you can see why that would get played so closely in succession, right? So when I called it, it was on this day, and then Sammy had a nice play on it today. So hopefully you did well today if you were just playing the official plays here. So very nice follow through on the AMAT. And then there were a couple other things that came up later. Actually, a room member found the HZO. Look at this nice, pretty retracement here. Here was the gap down, gapping the right size here, just enough to clear the support. And very, very nice on the HZO. This one I was kind of regretful that I didn't play it. He found it. I thought it looked good. Immediately put it on a chart, but I put it kind of far away from me on a screen that was kind of far. And once it was starting to go, I said, there isn't really any reason for us to not have played this. And so I think it was around 1440 at the time. You can see he closed here around 1380, and it was only about a 30-cent stop. Based on the size of this base. So pretty good follow through on the HZO. Got a downgrade. This wasn't earnings, but this one came up later, and that was a really nice contribution from one of the room members there to find this and put this out right before it triggered. So we're seeing some follow through to the downside and to the upside. That's what we expect from earnings season, especially if the market's not going to move too much. Today was kind of a bit of a slight grind there on the Qs and SPY, right? Showing some weakness initially and then popping back up. But overall, if you look at the daily chart, right, it's going to be a narrow body, pretty narrow range day today. That's fine. I think the more that we get there, can be boring during some of the kind of summer months, during the slower months, to get market days like today. But it's actually pretty good for earnings to get stuff like that. You can see that if we find the right ones, the ones that are gapping, that are getting a lot of attention, that those will really stand out and give us a chance to kind of play them, right? And this is when kind of trend following really can give you an advantage in staying in it till the bottom. Because if you look at these pivots here on the HZO, if you're just managing based on pivots, right, you're going to stay in. If you're managing like how I like to manage, which is off of the hourly, that's going to keep you in as well, right? So now's kind of the time for home runs. Earnings season, I think traders should be pretty excited for. I think it's possible some swing traders maybe don't like earnings season because the increased volatility on some of their long-term plays shows up. But for day traders, this is the time also where you really can make a killing. So that should be the focus here in the next few weeks. Okay, so I'll definitely let you know if I see things start to slow down. But I think right now is the time to push it. Okay, so especially if the market stays nice and quiet, remains kind of a minimal influence here, kind of the larger index, then some of these names should be that much easier to identify and jump on board. Okay, hope you did well today. If not, we still have plenty of trading ahead, plenty of earnings reports, so make sure that you make whatever adjustments that need to be made so they can be ready to go and still have a nice week. Okay, all right, so that's going to do it for today's market wrap. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good evening.